Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, empaths and not empaths alike. Today we are playing America's favorite new game, Spot the Narcissist. What up? Welcome back to my podcast. My name is Arielle, and this is Feeling My Feelings, where I finally feel my feelings after years of dissociating from them. After years of feeling like they weren't valid. After years of being gaslit to think that my feelings were wrong in general. Y'all, today we are talking about a really hard but very common topic, and it is this person a narcissist? So, I have dealt with many a manipulative, maybe narcissistic person in my life, and so this will be really interesting for me, and I know that I'm coming at this a little bit light, and I think that's my own sort of defense mechanism because this goes deep. This type of behavior is basically still my normal and has been my normal. And I've had to adjust to it a lot and adjust to how to cater to these types of people a lot in my life. So it's almost like a factual sort of way of living that I have not wanted to accept, but I found was normal for a long period of time that I'm now getting out of. And also, I will say, this comes from the perspective of a really empathic person as well, who myself needs to learn more boundaries. So I have some videos on boundaries, and also I will be making a new video based on how to be a healthy empath. Okay, well, y'all, let's play. Also, this should be your favorite new game. We have an election coming up. In general, we need to learn how to play Spot the Narcissist so that we can live our healthiest lives. Okay, so here is a hot take. I don't know if we really need to decide whether or not someone is a narcissist. I think what's most important is that we learn how to identify that we're being manipulated in the first place. And we need to figure out how we can start to build boundaries around those people. Because let's say you do decide that someone is a narcissist. Is that the only reason why you think you're valid in building boundaries, in thinking that you were hurt? And let's say you don't think someone's a full narcissist. Do you feel like that creates more confusion in you? Do you feel like you're more likely to give someone a second chance? Do you feel like you're not valid or justified in any upset feelings you have about that person? Either way, I just want us to realize that whether or not that person can be labeled a certain way, it is most important that we take care of our own energy. And our lives don't revolve around them. That's exactly what true narcissists want. Our lives are about us and how we can better give our energy to people who deserve it, and how we can better give back energy and take back our own energy from others that don't deserve it. So here is the $1 million question. What is a narcissist? Now, I'm going to say that a narcissist is someone who basically lacks empathy, who mostly thinks about themselves and lives and works and does everything just for their own gain without consideration of other people. They tend to be people who have very strong core victimhood wounds that they use as an excuse to justify their actions that often hurt other people, but boost their own ego. Narcissists are people with really fragile egos who exhibit a lot of different behaviors that I'll get into in a moment. But basically, I will say again, it's hard to identify that someone is 100% narcissistic. And that's why I always think, and I always try to say, that people are probably using the term narcissist too much. and a lot of psychological, like, therapy terms too much. I think the biggest thing, like, is that if someone is a full narcissist, they are really obviously toxic all the time. However, a reality is that narcissism is probably made out of survival. And it can start off as someone having just general defensive tendencies to try to preserve their ego because of whatever has happened to them. But the more and more their lives and their habits are taken over by too much self-defense, the more and more they lose self-awareness, the more and more they project things onto other people, and they lose their sense of accountability. So it seems like true narcissism is when someone is that far gone. It doesn't mean that any of these other sort of habits that I'll get into, it doesn't mean that a human, can't have any of these habits. We all want to protect our egos. We have different times in our lives where we need to be really defensive. And those times could come up like, I don't know, like once in a while, every couple months, once we've taken, I don't know, a new job, once we've gotten into a leadership position, once we've gotten into a certain relationship, once we've had to do whatever in our lives, there will be moments where the only thing we know how to do is defend ourselves because my ego is definitely at stake. My sense of self is about to be attacked or something. So I will say a lot of us could exhibit manipulative, almost narcissistic behaviors because we're human. It's that, are you constantly like this? Are you constantly like just deflecting blame? Are you always like in this state of, I'm just perfect, nothing's wrong with me, like nothing will ever be wrong with me? That is true narcissism. Otherwise, there's a whole spectrum of people that are on different levels of being highly manipulative. And there are people who are unfortunately like a lot more manipulative and almost narcissistic with certain people in their lives, but they were once, and maybe still are, the empath and people pleaser and doormat to the narcissists in their lives. There's so many different levels of this, and I will say again, I don't think putting a label on somebody is as important as learning to work through certain behaviors and learning to guard yourself from certain behaviors. Overall, I've known many people who are great people, who are fun and charismatic, or like, yeah, they could be a little bit more confident and fall into some manipulative behaviors when they feel like they need to for survival. It is up to you to discern how much you want of that in your life and how often this person does manipulative things and what you want to give and take from these types of relationships. It's difficult. These have been my family members, my friends, my coworkers, my bosses, my significant others, or people that I've been dating. We've all known people with different levels of manipulative behavior. Again, it's up to you about like whether you want certain energy in your life. And I will say that knowing that I've had a lot of these types of people in my life, I've also known, especially as an empath, really healthy sides of them. And as empaths, we often bring out that healthier side of them that makes them feel safer. It's interesting because as an empath, you probably see when people like this, and people like this I mean to be like people who exhibit much more manipulative behavior, we often see when their defenses are down because we create that safe space for them. But the moment where you might trigger them, they might show up in a way that you don't recognize. All these things are valid, and it's up to you whether or not you want to be involved in it. So one really obvious telltale sign of a manipulative and even narcissistic person is if they lack accountability. These people really want to defend their egos. That is their whole shtick. That's the whole reason why they have all of these manipulative behaviors. Their egos are fragile. And if you say anything that does not completely boost their ego, they will not want to hear it. Like, again, their whole persona is built around deflecting, ignoring, not wanting to be self-aware at all. And so they will often, if you say something that they did hurt you, if you say even like, oh, you got the name of this thing wrong, watch how they react. How defensive are they? Also, in general, how upset are they? Again, reminder that anyone can have any of these signs at a certain level, but is it constant? Is it always? Do they completely lack self-awareness? That is where it gets dangerous. So this lack of accountability also turns into gaslighting, because again, they're going to deflect, because not only are they, whether intentionally or not intentionally, manipulating, they do not want to see a world where they are wrong or where they're bad at anything or where they look bad at all. So oftentimes when I see someone is always complaining about something, or is always saying like, oh, it's someone else's fault, or they just have something against me, or I don't know, these types of people are always weird, these types of people are always terrible, like, that is a clue that this person tends to be extremely defensive. And the more and more defensive they are, the less and less they may be unable to see or admit when they're wrong. And a huge, huge sign is when you can feel the gaslighting, when you tell them something you did hurt me, and the reaction is they are mad that you are telling them that they upset you. They're mad that you're hurt about them hurting you. And what's really sad is I have a friend right now who is in a pretty abusive relationship, and she's at this point where she gets very confused about whether or not her emotional reactions to a person's behavior is valid. And that's what happens because this person, with all of his charisma and confidence, tells her without any hesitation that you are an asshole for telling me that I hurt you. Like, this person with all confidence in the world tells my friend definitively that you are the person that is wrong. But what's confusing in addition to that is that if she agrees to that, he will give her affection and love and accept her. But if she doesn't agree with that, he will take that away, like, drastically. And so, fucked up, man. So a person who gaslights that much, who manipulates that much, will convince you because they are so confident even in their lies, and that is so scary. So a main thing that I want you to be able to point out in yourself is, how do you feel when you interact with this person? Do you feel like when you say something, when you want to share your feelings, it gets taken in a completely wrong way? Do you even feel like you always have to hesitate or walk on eggshells or bite your tongue when you want to say something to this person? I know with my friend, like, she's always like, oh God, I shouldn't have said what I felt because I'm always going to upset him. Like, he's always going to be mad at me, or like, I always do something wrong. And it's so sad to hear that she's taking that on as like, God, I am always wrong. But yet there's always a confusion in her where she points out, like, I had this intuition, I had this feeling, I knew something felt wrong. That right there is enough for you to explore. Whether or not whoever is wrong or whatever's happening in the situation, if the takeaway is that you're always confused, if you feel unsettled, if you feel unsafe at all, this person is doing something that does not create a strong sense of self-assurance. You have a reason why you still don't feel completely at ease. You have a reason why you feel like you're always doing something wrong around this person. So they don't take accountability, they gaslight, they're really confident about it, and at the end of the day, you always feel a bit unsafe, ungrounded, unsettled. That is probably the biggest sign. So these types of people really love attention. Again, their lives, their whole shtick, their whole personality is built around, I only survive if I make sure my ego is boosted. So if you are in a relationship with somebody, for example, again, with my friend and her boyfriend, you will often see that they will be cheating, or they will even just be emotionally cheating. They'll always be looking for attention and fishing for compliments. I know that this person that my friend's dating, like, he will, like, you know, peacock and stuff on social media. He will, like, talk to a lot of friends that are women, and he will subtly flirt, but not really. He could always justify that it isn't flirting, but at the end of the day, it seems like he can, I guess covertly, that's a term, covert narcissism. He can get away with things and still argue that he is being loyal or whatever to my friend. But then she starts, and like, she ends up finding out that like he would lie to her or the other girl that he's dating, and again, be really confident about it. And so in many ways, if someone is always looking for validation, if they're always needing their egos to be stroked, that's a danger zone. Because at the end of the day, that person can hurt you, mistreat you, confuse you, leave you just to boost their ego. We know this, but I think it's important that we see all levels of it. Again, there's such thing as emotional cheating. There is a lot of people who justify little things or like hanging out with people, but you know, there's even things like if this person is hanging out with someone that they know likes them, has a crush on them, a little bit of that, or much of it, is that they like that attention. They like that someone likes them. They like having a backup. They like knowing that they are the most desirable person. And a lot of the times, now, again, some narcissists and manipulative people can be covert, or they can be extremely obvious and not self-aware at all. Some of them actually are intentional and aware of the fact that they can manipulate and they can make a situation look less bad than it is. And then there are some people who just like are very obvious. This is almost better. Some people are just very obvious about the fact that they're like, oh, everyone likes me, or like I don't know, they'll have like a big head about things, and they'll kind of like exaggerate their importance, exaggerate how much people like them. Yeah, either way, in order to protect their ego, they got to figure out how to have a big head. And as much as sometimes we can call that confidence, we need that confidence. It's that if they are also hurting you, if it doesn't seem mindful to your feelings, then it's not healthy. Also just in general, they likely hijack your conversations or things that you're doing to cater to them. So maybe they always want to talk about themselves and their own achievements, or alternatively, they always talk about like their own emotions. They want to vent, but when it comes time for you to vent, they don't give you as much attention. They're not as emotionally available for you. They're not as compassionate. They don't want to listen. They often just want to listen to themselves talk, or if they listen to you, it's in a way where they can be strategic. They listen just to respond. They listen for how they can, respond and act fake, or I don't know, even people please and manipulate you. There seems to be a lack of undivided attention and a lack of empathy. I think you can feel it. You can feel when someone is just listening and sort of calculating and kind of waiting, to see how they can best, I just keep saying manipulate, but how they can best respond and manipulate you. But you can tell the difference between that and a person who just seems to be like actually emotionally present and engaged with you. I know oftentimes like I will be talking to or dating someone, and I will kind of feel like there's an odd lack of emotional presence. And I don't know if you guys can also tell that, but it's weird because when I am around healthier people, I get this weirder sense of like, oh, the attention's back on me. Where like, it is kind of subtle, but with more manipulative people, I can feel that I am trying really hard to be hyper vigilant and very like in tune with their feelings because I feel the need to. And that their feelings, that manipulative person's feelings, are kind of overwhelming me. It does feel like you can tell when their energy is trying to dominate you. It's really sad because I've started to be around more mindful, present people lately, and I have seen the difference between that and someone who is, I mean, at the very least, more self-centered and likely to be a lot more manipulative and narcissistic. But when I'm around people who are more reciprocal and healthier, it's odd because it's like I'm not used to how much they are more mindful. They also foresee and like ask me things like to make sure that I'd be comfortable. Like, this is something that I do, but like, it's funny when it does come from another person, when they are like, oh, would you be uncomfortable with that? Or like, I understand that you probably had a hard day, so I don't want to take up your time. Or like, I don't, like, it's those little things that seem very genuine that healthier people actually seek out and want to ask you about. Where like, sometimes manipulative or narcissistic people obviously aren't aware of those things, or it will sound fake when they ask those things. A lot of the times these people are very jealous, they're competitive, and a lot of the times that's not always obvious. Like, I will be with, I had a family member growing up that always felt like they wanted to compete with me, even when it was on things that they never even thought they liked. Like, there was a time where I started video editing and I was really excited about it. And they were like, I can't do that. Why can't I do that? Can you teach me? Like, but it was like, not excitedly. It was like, well, I can't do that. And it, like, their self-esteem just immediately deflated. And sometimes, again, as humans, we feel insecure. That's okay. That's normal. But it seemed to be a constant that anytime I was happy or good at or working on something, even if it never crossed this person's mind that they wanted to do that, it was always that, oh God, there's another reason why, like, I have to compete. I need to be better than them. Like, you see this all the time, whether that's at like workplaces, like in relationships with your friends, obviously with family members. Weird, jealous competition is constant. And it's like, again, they want to have their ego stroked, but also like it doesn't have like any bounds. It just feels like they must be the best at everything or else. Like, you can tell, it's really weird. There are people who are very charismatic, they're leaders, they stand out, they're always the loudest in the room, but the moment someone else does speak up and is liked, you can tell, even in their body language, that they're like, oh, do I have to do that now? Do I have to do that now in order to be liked? Like, that's what I would see all the time with this family member. Like, things that like they never needed to do. Like I don't know, but it's this sort of like this feeling that they will never be accepted unless they are good at everything. And so there's definitely a perfectionism. There's definitely like that controlling nature. Like, I would have this family member tell me, like, don't look pretty. Don't try to sing better than me. Don't try to do these, like, don't do these things because it hurts my feelings. It makes me feel insecure. And it's like, yeah. Like, you'll see oftentimes these types of people want to dim your light. They will feel threatened by you, and they may make you feel bad for the things that you like, that you're good at. So these people tend to be like often very charismatic, or at least great communicators to the point where they can be fake. and they can lie to you and they can manipulate you. And honestly, as an empath myself, I have my own version of being manipulative, being a people pleaser. Being really nice is actually some form of manipulation. And you know what? A lot of manipulative narcissistic people probably and could have been like super empathic people pleasers to begin with. I understand. I try to check this in myself too, because if I was really damaged and if push came to shove, I could see myself turning more manipulative if I got, really, if it was too much for me. I understand why people end up this way, because how else are they going to survive? Yeah, like we've seen many a charismatic politician, actor, whatever, who just seems cool. They can seem great, but again, no matter what they are like otherwise, what matters the most is your interactions with them. There can be such happy, charismatic people who will hurt you and feel nothing and go off, not even being mean, not even being serious. They will go off and happily like smile and they'll go about their day and seem positive. Anyway, we know that people be fake, but it's quite sad because it can be hard to catch when they are otherwise really cool. These people just hold on way too tightly to this victim story. They build limiting habits and beliefs and huge defense mechanisms so that they no longer feel like a victim. But the thing is they obviously didn't sit with and heal the actual core wound. They started using it as an excuse. And I will just say for those on the receiving end of this, that as much as we want to be there for these people, as much as we understand and we see them on a spectrum and they're not fully bad or whatever, it does them a disservice if we spend so much time helping them heal. We need to spend time with ourselves. We can't spend so much time making them see all the things that will heal them. Because first of all, we can't, spend especially if this is like a romantic partner, like your whole relationship may end up being that you need to therapize this person who cannot reciprocate that back. The other thing is there can be times when this person will feel like they need to heal for you and they haven't learned yet again how to heal and be healthy just for themselves. Their whole thing is external validation, must do things so that their ego gets validation, must do things so that people will like them. And if their healing at its core is for you or for the sake of someone else, they still won't be able to learn that lesson of their own self-acceptance, self-awareness, and self-love. So we do need to give these types of people time to be with themselves, to heal for them. Otherwise, they continue learning that life revolves around how they can adjust and be, and I don't know, get their ego strokes or be accepted or whatever. Like it depends on external validation for them if we don't give them a chance to learn their own self-love. I've gotten so accustomed to adjusting, to giving more, to listening more, to apologizing first, to basically holding my tongue to accommodate somebody else. I've unfortunately gotten used to feeling like, oh, it's because I'm the less confident person. I think they can take, this person can take the wheel or whatever. I have gotten used to having to dimming myself down because because this is a lot of relationships I've had in my life. But I'm transitioning kind of out of that, and I'm learning my own sense of confidence and learning how to let go and build boundaries around these types of people. But it can get very confusing because there are times where it's good with these people. It's confusing when they're not obviously, like blatantly, without censoring, like a true narcissist. Sometimes that happens and we still decide to vote for them for president. But anyway, there are less obvious people, and we unfortunately make their behavior into something that's just like, oh, they're just confident. But I think it all chalks up to, how do you feel? Do you feel like you can be yourself? And more so, do you feel like you get to be confident? You get to speak your mind? Do you feel like you could argue without destroying the relationship? Do you feel like you could settle your differences? You can agree to disagree? Because anyone can be really, high-strung. They can be a little bit self-centered. They can appear like they think about themselves and they have a big head, but that's not always a bad person. But they can lean that way if not self-aware.